Anti-vaxxers. They're not your typical tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy theorists. They contribute to unnecessary sickness and death. They deserve neither tolerance nor respect for their deadly beliefs. Conspiracy theories are alternative and almost always inaccurate explanations of events. They often come about when some ambitious individual or group pieces together random facts to form distorted and incorrect conclusions, which are heavily saturated with baseless suspicion and accusations of cover-ups, but are rarely backed up with actual evidence. They tend to originate from mistrust of official explanations given, especially if those explanations come from government or academic sources. People who fall for conspiracy theories often point to real examples of conspiracies as proof that the official version of events must not be trusted, and that anybody who accepts them are just naive shills and cheaple. This is not skepticism. Skepticism does not involve rejecting explanations simply for its own sake. It is reserving judgment until sufficient evidence can be provided. This is just paranoia on a comical scale. But not all conspiracy theories are funny. Some promote and praise ignorance and dangerous information. The rise of the internet has helped conspiracy theories to spread like cancer. When it comes to vaccines, there is a debate, and that debate is between the medical community and idiots. And I have absolutely no qualms whatsoever in calling anti-vaxxers idiots. They willfully reject the medical literature in favor of debunked bullshit. Unfortunately, some of these idiots are famous idiots, and they use their famous platforms to further their anti-vaccination nonsense. Idiots that include the infamous Jenny McCarthy, Alicia Silverstone, Mayim Bialik, Michelle Bachmann, Donald Trump, and somehow Bill Maher have all accepted the junk pseudoscience that is the anti-vaccination movement. So what's their problem? First, let's start with what a vaccine is. A vaccine is a biological substance that is used to provide immunity against specific diseases by triggering the body's immune system to produce antibodies. This is usually produced by introducing a weakened or dead form of the disease-causing microbe into the subject's body. This process allows the immune system to produce these same antibodies much quicker in the event that the subject is exposed or infected in the future, thereby sharply reducing the risk of full-blown illness. This concept has been understood for centuries, as documentation shows that inoculations against smallpox go back as far as the 16th century in China, and was rediscovered in 1796 when Edward Jenner demonstrated that exposure to cowpox resulted in immunity to smallpox. The practice of vaccinating really took off at the end of the 19th century. From the beginning, the ignorant and horribly misinformed repudiated the practice for a variety of reasons. Among the first anti-vaxxers were, of course, the religious nuts, who condemned vaccinations as flying in the face of providence, and endeavoring to baffle a divine judgment. To translate that to 21st century speak, vaccinations are bad because they undermine God's punishment in the form of disease. But the new wave of anti-vaxxers got kicked off back in 1998 when this lying sack of shit, Andrew Wakefield, had somehow muscled his now retracted paper into the Lancet, asserting a link between the MMR vaccine and autism in 12 children. What he failed to mention to his subjects and to his co-authors is that he was being bankrolled by a lawyer who was in the process of suing manufacturers of the MMR vaccine. It was also found that he manipulated his patients' data to fabricate a link between the MMR vaccine and autism. Since then, the Lancet has retracted the original publication, and all but 2 of Wakefield's 12 co-authors have retracted their interpretations from the paper. The Cochrane Central Register of Controlled Trials published the results of 5 randomized controlled trials, 1 controlled clinical trial, 27 cohort studies, 17 case-controlled studies, 5 time series trials, 1 case crossover trial, 2 ecological studies, and 6 self-controlled case series studies of 14,700,000 children. Not only was the MMR vaccine shown to be safe, with a 95% efficacy rate against measles and 69 to 81% effective against mumps, not a single link to autism was found. As for Dr. Fuckhead here, he was struck off the medical register on May 24th, 2010 for fraud, and is now barred from practicing medicine in the UK. He spends most of his time now being the hero of the stupid, taking more money in the name of medical hoaxes with speaking engagements at idiot paloozas. Maybe you think I'm being a little hard on Wakefield, but I don't think I'm being hard enough. Because of his fraud, far too many parents have opted out of vaccinating their children, accounting for the resurgence of preventable diseases. Measles, which was once considered eradicated from the Western Hemisphere, have had recent outbreaks in New York, Texas, Indiana, Washington, North Carolina, and California. How did that happen? Because when more and more people in a population fail to vaccinate themselves and their children, it reduces the overall herd immunity within that population, giving the disease the chance to infect the most vulnerable: small children. The rise in illnesses also creates a rise in medical costs because these diseases can be very dangerous. But unfortunately, we are so many generations removed from a time when these childhood illnesses were just as likely to result in death as with recovery. And we have far too many idiot parents who don't understand this. To get a glimpse of how prevalent the deaths of children once was, you only need to look at the 1900 United States Census. There were two important questions for the women of the households: how many children they had, and how many of them were still alive. That's how common it was to have your kids die on you. But mention that to anti-vaxxers, and it's just entertainment for them. They would rather rail against the supposed dangers of thimerosal, or ethyl mercury. First of all, thimerosal hasn't been used in any vaccinations, except for some for influenza, since 1999. And yet, autism has not decreased. Secondly, symptoms of autism and mercury poisoning are nothing alike, and there certainly is no link between the two. Thirdly, ethyl mercury excretes from the body a lot quicker than methyl mercury, which is the kind that is found in fish. Furthermore, the toxicity of thimerosal has been documented, and the lowest amount noted in acute mercury poisoning is still way more than you would find in a flu vaccination, which one would think would go without saying, or it wouldn't be approved for use. So, if vaccines aren't correlated with the rise of autism, then what is? The diagnostics have changed because the definition of autism has changed. According to the third edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, published in 1980, autism was limited to only infantile autism, with only 5 criteria listed for diagnosis. But the fourth edition, published in 1994 and revised in 2000, has criteria that goes beyond infantile autism, and includes criteria more commonly associated with less severe autism. And the fifth edition, published in 2013, completely recategorized various developmental disorders into the autism spectrum. Disorders such as Asperger's and pervasive developmental disorder, which had previously been separate categories, have now been included into the autism spectrum. That means, on record, that more kids have been diagnosed with autism because the definition has expanded to other disorders. So vaccines. They're safe, they save lives, and they don't cause autism. Idiots everywhere! Back away from the Alex Jones channel and weigh your options. Healthy kids or dead kids?